Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, based on whichever part of the world you are in right now. I remember the time when I was applying for my MBA, one question came in front of me was, why do I really want to do an MBA? The answer was quite simple, that I want to make a career transition. But then came a bigger question. How can the MBA help me in making the career transition, or what are the options available? So these are the questions that we are going to answer today and much more in yet another student panel discussion by GMAT Club. Let me welcome our four panelists that we have, and let me ask for a brief introduction from them. Cyril, why don't you introduce yourself briefly?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And good to meet everyone. My name is Cyril. I go to Harvard Business School. I'm a rising second year, and I was in management consulting before starting up at HBS and pivoting right now to real estate.
All right, lovely to see you, Cyril. Harinderjeet, do you want to go next?
Thank you, Nikhil. For me, it's good evening. I'm in India right now, so I'm Harinderjeet. I'm a current student at the Indian School of Business, the class of 21. We graduate on the 16th of August. I'm a military veteran. I served in the Indian Armed Forces for more than 20 years. And thereafter decided that I wanted to do something really different for personal reasons. And here I am. And I'm pivoting towards operations because that brings a little bit of my transferable skills. And having learned a whole lot of new stuff at ISB, completely new to my domain, that's where I'm headed. Thank you.
Wonderful. Lauren, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Gergel, and I went to the Johnson School at Cornell. I was in preclinical laboratory science, and I'm pivoting to healthcare consulting, and I just graduated.
Perfect. And Andrea, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Quintero. I used to work in financial services as a banker, and now with the MBA program, I am pivoting to consumer packaged goods. This program, I basically chose it because of its sustainability part, and I want to integrate those practices into a more focused role on retail or consumer packaged goods.
All right. So every one of you made a transition to a industry or a function which you were not involved with before going into an MBA. So that's the first question that I want to ask. How was the MBA helpful in making this particular transition? Who would like to start first? Cyril, do you want to start first?
Yeah, I would love to. So for me, HBS has been a great opportunity to really, I think, do two things. One is validate that the pivot that I chose was the right direction, and then also to be able to develop the skills to be able to succeed within real estate. So coming into HBS, I knew nothing about real estate. I just had a sense that it seemed like it would be a good fit based on conversations I had with people and just kind of getting to understand the industry better. And so for me, I really had kind of a lot of learning to do. And there's just a lot of different ways at HBS and through the MBA that I was able to kind of validate both of those different kind of pillars, if you will. So I got involved with the real estate club at HBS, which has been great to be able to develop networks, do a lot of learning, doing a lot of outreach through the alumni network that we have. And then also just using your classmates as a resource too. You can learn a ton from them and really, and they can really help you grow too. Like for example, one skill that's really important in real estate investing is using Argus, which is kind of a programming tool. And my classmates were the ones that taught me that. And, those are really just, it was really helpful to have that sort of support there because, it really shows that you don't need to go through something necessarily formal, but you can really deepen your knowledge and your understanding as you're doing this pivot in a lot of different facets. So that and a number of other things have really been helpful, but I think just really getting as involved as possible has been really helpful for me in this first year at HBS so far.
Great. So you were able to leverage your classmates the most, I believe, in terms of making this particular transition. Harinderjeet, how was it for you since you have already graduated or you are almost graduating from your curriculum? How was it for you?
Yeah, Nikhil, I think for me, it was one of the biggest transitions of my life. Here I was a career officer in the Navy, and I was decided that, there was a bit of a turmoil in the family. So I had to really, give that up and come close to my family and start all over again. And this thing reverberated a lot in my mind, that should I make a transition directly, or should I go through a B school and do an MBA program? And I realized, based on my own discussions with a few of my own friends who had made the switch earlier, that you need two very important things, as far as, when you come from a government organization like mine, which is very regimented, which is highly disciplined, which has a very hierarchical system in place. And the reason for that is that when you're in that system for too long, that skin kind of grows on you. And you need to really shed that skin, when you make a transition, because you're going out to the world where these lines are not very very well set in stone or cast in stone. And there's a whole lot of organizational maneuverability and flexibility which you got to work with. And the second thing was that in the military, at least in the Indian Armed Forces, and I think across the world, there's a just-in-time training concept that prepares you for about 4 or 5 years of a career horizon, with a program which may last from anywhere from 4 months to about 8 to 12 months. So for me, the two important things were the vigor of youth, because that's what I'm the oldest in my class in the Indian School of Business right now, and the rigor of an education, because it's very important. A military officer has a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of diverse perspectives on a whole lot of issues, but those are very superficial. You need to really go down into depth and know things in quite detail. And when you're with the young people, you're with millennials, they are really right up there with everything, except especially with technology and how things work and how quickly things get done. And for me, I think the peer to just like Cyril mentioned, that I just build on that peer-to-peer interaction is one of the biggest facets that really brings MBA education right up there as a value addition to your life. It's not the classroom. Obviously, the classroom education plays a big role in giving you a grounding. But what you learn from your batchmates right across the campus, whether it's over a coffee or a meal or the study group getting together and working on an assignment, I think that's the biggest takeaway. In addition to the alumni network, when you go through your placements and when you start preparing and you start with the whole process, you suddenly realize that this whole treasure trove of knowledge and the wealth of experience that really comes into you. And there is it's like drinking, like it's already said that B schools drinking drinking from a fire hose. It's all coming at you, and you've really got to be very very nuanced in picking up the right things. And I think that's where it made a big difference to me, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful to know the story. Andrea, how was your program able to help you, or is helping you in making the transition?
Yeah, so in my case is pretty much very similar to what Cyril says. I think that this part of getting to know a lot of people from so many different backgrounds, professional backgrounds, and getting to know different ways of doing things is a really nice way to get to know how to do different things. Also, learning that even though that you may have past experience doing something else in a different industry, there are a lot of transferable skills that you can put into whatever you're looking to go now. So for me specifically, since I'm trying to specialize on sustainability, I didn't have a lot of knowledge on how to put those things in a professional matter. So it was a lot of from a personal perspective. So for me, it has been very enlightening to hear from a lot of people on speaker series or networking events on how they are integrating this sustainability part into their own jobs. So that's what's been good for me.
Perfect. And do you have a subject in your curriculum that helps you in learning about sustainability? Does that happen in the program, or is it more to talk to people and attend some lectures about that?
Yeah, so there's a specialization where you can take a lot of courses that are very focused on sustainability. A lot of them are kind of general in terms of understanding how you can integrate sustainability into the business world, and others are more specifically focused on an area which you would like to go. So, for example, if I were to continue doing finance, there's a lot of sustainability in finance or real estate and how to do a lot of clean energy. So it really depends on what you're looking for on this specialization.
Perfect. Perfect. Lauren, if I'm not wrong, you are trying to stay in the same industry, healthcare. So, how is not changing the industry but changing the function, getting help from the program?
Yep. Thank you. It was very important to me that I go get my MBA. So I came from preclinical science, and for anyone out there that doesn't know, that is all the testing that happens before human clinical trials to make sure that a treatment is safe enough to go into humans. So I had this almost 10 years of experience in the laboratory, publishing papers, doing testing, and it was very exciting. But I became very interested as I moved on with why my company was making certain decisions. And my only frame of reference was science and the laboratory. And I realized that in order to understand the industry to move forward in my own career, I had to know the business side of science. And so when I looked around, I realized that an MBA program would not only give me the foundational knowledge of finance and everything that I needed, economics, to put my work in a global context, a national context, looking at trends and where my industry was going. But it also would give me a lot of the soft skills that we all will need in business. And the skills that you need to be in the laboratory are very different than you need leading large teams, leading cross-functional teams. And that's one of the reasons why I chose my school, because it has a lot of support for career switchers. It has a very small class, and it's very, very focused on your unique individual needs. And I wanted to stay that sciencey kind of person, but just change function. And I knew I would get a lot of support in that recruitment for consulting at my school. I had the consulting club and many other things, but my soft skills, we have an entire part of our curriculum that teaches about leadership. And I was able to eventually become the president of the healthcare club. I learned all of those things, like how to motivate people, how to get people with disparate ideas to work together. And so the entire experience was very transformative for me. And getting the MBA was the right choice.
Oh, perfect. And it is rightly said that, the MBA provides you basically with three things: the knowledge, network, and credibility. And I see how the network part of it coming through in making the career transition. Lovely to see that. And also, if I'm not wrong, every school majorly asks, when we are applying for the application, majorly ask you what is the career option that you would want to pursue after you graduate from the school. And but a lot of time what happens is we go in the school with some target, but we change our aspirations after going to the school because we are exposed to so many different things. Did this happen to anybody, that in the beginning you thought that you want to pursue MBA and come out of MBA doing something else, but now you're doing something else? Does that happen with anybody, any of you? I see, Lauren, you are nodding for that. Did that happen for you? And can you explain why did this particular transition happen, and what was your goal before coming to the school, and how is it going now?
Sure. I was laughing because I was just talking about this with an incoming student the other day, so it's fresh on my mind. I wrote in my application that I wanted to go into a leadership development program for a major pharma company. I'd come from pharma. I saw it as a quick way to move up in another company, and it seemed like the most viable option for me, especially being on the older side after 10 years of experience, maybe not, one or two. And so I got in, and then I started networking with second year students and learning about their summers and things that they had done, and quickly realized that consulting would allow me to broaden my view so quickly, because I had been so focused on one company for 10 years. I realized that if I was going to be an effective leader somewhere else, I needed to bring more experience than just how things were done at one company. So I quickly realized that going into healthcare consulting would give me the option of learning a variety of different things about a variety of different companies, sectors in the industry, problems. And I started to really kind of fall in love with the more structured mindset and the creativity that need to come with that kind of new career for me. So it was the right option for me to switch that thinking. And it was definitely a great place to explore. I still explored entrepreneurship a little bit. I explored marketing and the general management, but getting to kind of make that flip-flop is completely fine to do. And I encourage anyone out there who's listening who thinks they know what they want to do, but or maybe they don't know what they want to do, you can still have options and make that kind of change within the program. And it's totally feasible.
Perfect. Lovely to know. Harinder, here's a bit of information that I would want to know from you. You come from a very unique background from military. So were you really sure before jumping into your MBA that this is the operations is the area there where you would want to go post MBA, or was school able to help you in making that decision?
So when I was in my application process, I was very clear that, given my age, not really on the right side of 40, you've got to be very careful when you're making this switch, because, you don't want to be, in grief later on. So I was very clear that operations would be the way to go. And there I had done a bit of research on which are the options that are opening around in the Asia Pacific region where, there would be a transition to be made easily. But I'll build on what Lauren said, and it's very easy. In my tenure in the Indian Navy, there was a specific period of time, about 3 or 4 years, when I was what you could call the key account manager for a number of bilateral relationships that we have between navies and nations. And so when I came into the core course of marketing, that was a nice little trap laid out for me, and I felt that marketing is the way to go. And I did go there. I did play with that fire for a bit of a time. And I am majoring in strategy leadership and marketing, two majors. But I did not make a career switch towards marketing. I still retained marketing as something I have explored, to gain that knowledge and to gain that domain, knowledge for myself. But I decided still to, keep operations as a minor and go towards operations as a career switch. Because like Lauren said, you can make both the changes. You can make an industry change and a domain shift. It's possible, provided you can handle it well, and provided you are really in touch with your placement cell or your career advisory services which you have in your B school, to know that this is what my aspirations are and this is how they're evolving, and they can keep that thing in mind. And if you work this lever very well, you can make that switch. But it gets a little difficult. Not everybody is able to make it very well. So you have to be a little careful. That's what I would say. Like in my case, I was very clear. Not playing with fire, because, it's not really easy to do. It's good to have that major if you want, but doing the actual career shift, a little bit of care and concern. So that's why I kept that in mind, and I kept operations as a career focus. Coming to the career advisory services, they have been just brilliant. So for ISB, I think that's one thing that was a tick in the box for me when I was applying for ISB, having known from a lot of alumni before I applied as to the kind of career services, because in my particular case, it was very important for me to get that perspective that they really have gone all out. And I think as of now, they just almost achieve 100% before students graduate. So that's what really worked for me as well. Thank you.
Wow, that is so lovely to know, and that segues into the section of how do you really choose the MBA program for a particular career switch that you would want to make. So any specific things that you discussed with alumni or current students before making the choice of a particular MBA program? Andrea, I would like to start with you on this.
Yeah, so for me, so I just started looking for a lot of programs that had a specialization in sustainability, because it was something that I was really putting a lot of importance to. So when I started looking at what Schulich had to offer, it got into my knowledge that it is in the top 10 for sustainability programs. So that, and after that, also looking into the program and seeing what it really had to offer. And it's not just about the courses, but you also get to be part of this associations, or even get to know a lot of people in this industry. Schulich also just put an advisor for people who want to work in that industry. So these things are really good for it was something that really changed my mind, that this was the option that I needed to be in, because all of these things make a great way to keep working towards what you want into the future. So having those options was a must for me when I was looking for my MBA.
Perfect. And were there any other options other than Schulich you were able to shortlist that was able to satisfy those options?
Yeah, I actually looked at McGill as well, but
Mhm.
so I didn't like that much the program because even though I wanted to specialize into sustainability, you have the option to specialize in different things as well. So I believe that McGill only has 4 specializations, and
Mhm.
having the ability to have a lot of things to choose from, not just 4, it was something that also determined what I wanted to be in, where I wanted to be in.
Perfect. And Cyril, how was the process for you? You transitioned into the real estate. So what was the thought process while choosing Harvard for that?
Yeah, definitely. I took maybe what might be a little bit of an atypical approach in a sense. I actually wanted a program that would be broader, and there were kind of a multitude of reasons for it. One of the big ones is I kind of wanted to make sure that I wasn't, if real estate wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, that I wasn't maybe necessarily pigeonholing myself. And so really wanted to just find a program that would be able to give me the opportunity to develop as a leader and to be able to develop a broad array of soft and hard skills that I could leverage from my experience consulting, continue to develop, and then take to a multitude potentially of different career paths. Assuming real estate either worked or didn't work out. And I just really like the fact that Harvard really does the business school program there really does emphasize kind of a general management philosophy where your first year, for example, you can't take any specific classes, elective classes. You have a very generalist program. So you get a little bit of marketing, you get finance, you get leadership, a little bit of everything so that you can really kind of see all the different functions. And that's been super helpful because it's also just helped me, I think, in the way that I approach something new like real estate. So for example, in my internship this summer, it's allowed me to kind of think about how to be a leader within my team and to tackle some of the hard skills that we have to employ here. So it's been really helpful in that regard. I like also that despite having a more generalist first year, we have the opportunity to then deep dive in the second year. So I'll be able to take some real estate classes still, and also extracurriculars are a great way to still get involved in those ecosystems, but still have kind of a little bit more flexibility and develop just a broad array of skills to, no matter what happens in life, take it in any
Yeah.
direction.
All right. Also, Cyril, did you refer to the employment reports that the school generate to understand if the school is able to fulfill the career switch that you would want to make? Did you refer to the employment reports, or was it okay for you because the school can open ways in certain direction if at all they were not able to even place people in that particular industry earlier? So was that a reference point for you?
Yeah, it was. It was. So I did take a look at the reports, and I did know going in that it's a smaller area of interest for Harvard students. There's probably fewer than 2% of people of the class that's typically interested in real estate. But I went in knowing that and feeling comfortable, to your point there, that the Harvard would be able to offer a lot of different resources for me to be able to make the pivot. And I've definitely seen that over the course of the year. I don't feel like I'm missing anything by having such a kind of a more generalist approach. I think everything has really worked out kind of in both facets to really make the pivot really successful.
All right, great, great. There's an audience question that I would want to pick, and then that brings me to another question that I'll mention after that. So the question says, how perfect the career switching through MBA for entrepreneurial background candidate, and which vertical, product management or strategy, is appropriate for these roles, for these profiles. So what I really want to understand here is how important is your pre-MBA experience, how important is for making a transition to the career that you would want to choose after MBA. So maybe we can start with somebody coming from an entrepreneurship background, and then we can pivot into how can your pre-MBA experience, how can you really leverage that into your post-MBA experience. Harjinder, would you want to pick this up?
Yeah, thank you, Nikhil. Whoever is the gent or the lady asked that question, we have in my own batch here at the Indian School of Business, we have many students who've run startups. who've been entrepreneurs in their own right. Some of them have had 2 or 3 startups, and they have made a very successful switch to consulting. So then that's in a strategy role. So actually, you don't really need to bother about where you're coming from or where you're trying to pivot to. Like I said, as long as you manage it very well. More important is the matching of the skills. What skills do you have, and what skills is the company that's coming for looking at, and do these skills match? That's essentially the whole way the placement really goes through. It's not to worry about. I know of a lawyer, a very dear friend of mine. She's a lawyer here, and she's a compliance law from compliance law, and she's made a switch to marketing. She's managed the whole process very well. So it's about how you go through your acads, how you go through your clubs, and what you gain from your club activities and the workshops they organize. They organize industry treks, they organize alum sessions, how you net up with the alums, you know what you can take from them, and essentially how you match the skills that you have with the skills that the company is looking for. Yes, what you come with does add a lot of weight to where you really want to go, but you can manage the switch very well. It's not a problem at all.
All right, all right. Lauren, how is the support for entrepreneurs at Johnson, and where do you see your classmates making a transition to if they're coming from entrepreneurship background?
Sure. We have an entrepreneurship club at Johnson, and I know the school is really looking to put more emphasis and support into those people who have entrepreneurial backgrounds or want to go into entrepreneurship. And my mentor in the program actually has gone on to found her own startup in the children's mental telehealth space, and it is incredible. She's doing wonderful things, and there are so many pitch competitions, case competitions, things that you're exposed to. I think in almost any MBA program, it's a wonderful time to network with your classmates, to network with people in other schools. And I think that there are resources out there to grab all over the place. Now, if you're trying to go from entrepreneurship to any of the other ones, like to go into marketing, things like that, what I'd emphasize what everyone else has said. It's those transferable skills to really look for those that when you are speaking to a recruiter or someone else, you are drawing those direct parallels. So for instance, for me, I had to sit around and think about how would I transfer my laboratory skills or my experience in the laboratory to, say, consulting. So for instance, I had to work up against very harsh FDA deadlines. So I have experience working with governments, with regulatory agencies. I have experience working at fast-paced environments. And then I have an incredible attention to detail. It's government testing, things like that. And so I think anyone can sit around and really find those things about themselves, their skills, their values, and what they're interested in, and find a way to draw the appropriate parallels. Now, what I would say is, can any person make any career switch? I would never say no, but I would say that there are paths that are harder than others. So if you don't have any kind of finance background, it may be very difficult to go right into private equity per se. Or if your school does not have, if you want to go into marketing and your school just doesn't have many relationships with marketing companies or doesn't have any speakers or a club for that, it'll be more on you to push that forward and build those networks and relationships, things like that. However, I never say never. My friend was a metal artist, an artist who worked in large sculptural works, and she ended up recruiting for M&A at EY. So I think many things are possible, but just be very aware of what you're bringing to the table and what each school or company is looking for, and you'll do well.
Wow. So you sort of answered my next question as well to a certain extent, which is, can you really switch to any career you want? You said that's not entirely true. But if at all, let's say somebody wants to make a career switch to an option where there are so many limitations in a particular person's profile, what are some of the ways that you would suggest that we can fill in those gaps while in an MBA program? Cyril, would you like to shed some light on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's a great question, and to what Lauren was saying, definitely agree that you really do have the opportunity to really go in whatever direction you want to. If you get into one of these programs, you are obviously smart and capable of really making the most of it. The thing I would really just emphasize is really being intentional about trying to make it happen. So I think there is a degree of one does need to kind of put in the work to be able to achieve that, and really just kind of using every opportunity possible, because there are going to be fields that are going to be harder to get into. PE or VC space is typically challenging. Even going like more traditional routes like consulting, finance can be very challenging, especially if you come from kind of a very different background. But the more that you can network with people who are in that field, so that you can get a better understanding of what the industry looks like, and that you can also get your name out there, so that maybe the people that you're talking to can help point you in the right direction. So it's kind of a twofold process in that regard. Try and study up as much as you can. So one thing I did, for example, with real estate is trying to do as much training and reading about real estate as I could. Every little tidbit just builds to your knowledge base. And just don't be afraid to ask questions. And even if they might seem small or silly, you have great classmates, again, that are a great form of support. These schools have great career services that can help kind of structure your guidance, but you really have to use all of those things in conjunction to be able to really push towards that and be successful, I think.
Oh, all right, great. Andrea, how were you able to sort of fill in your gaps at Schulich when you wanted to move into sustainability? Because I believe you were not coming from that background.
Yeah, not at all. I think that a lot of this has already been said, but so the university usually gives you a lot of tools for you to be able to network or to move around wherever you want to switch directions to. So in my case, it's basically all about using those things that the university gave me to. So being able to talk to advisors, so they could help me tailor my own resume for the transferable skills that I want to put into where I want to go, or just even get to myself informed about more about that industry, or where could I work, or getting to know. It's all about getting out of your comfort zone and maybe start talking to new people who are already in this industry, and what are they doing, what did they do, what worked for them, what didn't. So it's a lot of asking questions and moving. You have to do things. If you have the tools for doing the right things, use them 100%, and it would definitely help you to get where you want to go.
All right. I have an audience question for Harinder. He asks, are there any good product management opportunities at ISB available? Do you have an idea on that?
Oh, of course, Nikhil. There are tremendous amount of opportunities when it comes to product management, when it comes to the Indian School of Business. A lot of students of the current batch, my own batchmates, have made this transition coming from not very hardcore tech backgrounds, but they have made that transition as well, very well. So tremendous amount of opportunities, definitely.
Perfect.
That's the
Great.
short answer.
Thank you. One question that I would want to ask all of you, like, do you have any advice for the prospective students who are applying to MBA schools and then are looking for career transitions, but they're not really sure if they can do that or not? And is deciding on your career before going into MBA is the most important thing, and then you cannot change it, or can you really change it after jumping into the MBA program? So what advice would you give to somebody who's applying for an MBA program right now? Lauren, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think the main point of advice, I think there's such general ones. Of course, everyone's going to review and take the GMAT. There's 10,000 things that are just common sense. But the most important one that ended up being a game changer for me was giving up the idea that there is a perfect MBA student or a perfect applicant for any one school. A lot of these schools are looking to build a class. And because of that, they're looking for all different types of people. were apparently looking for a science nerd. And I was really happy that I kind of sat down and thought about, who am I? Who am I really going to be true to? What do I want from this program? And really stick to my guns. So instead of trying to come off as someone that I wasn't, I was doubling down on what were the best and truest parts of me. And I found a program that valued me for me. And I think that that's really important, that there is not going to be one perfect way to get into anyone's. A lot of my essays were certainly about things that people maybe wouldn't write about, like going to Burning Man or starting a sorority, just ones that were just part of my background that maybe no one else had. So I would encourage everyone to sit around and think about, have an honest assessment of your strengths, your values, and then look at the schools that you're looking at. What are their strengths? What are their values? And see where they intersect. And then throughout the process, be true to yourself and what you want.
Great. Andrea, what advice would you give to the incoming students?
Yeah, I think that if I were to give myself advice before this, I would just say don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it can be very challenging, or it may seem like something scary at the time, like a lot of different processes, and I don't know if I'll be a good fit or not. But just know your worth and know that your experience can also help others in terms of whenever you're networking or whatever, or learning from a different perspective, from a different experience. So just learn how to sell what you know how to do your best, and don't be afraid to do new things. That's if you want to see changes, you have to do changes. So that would be for me.
All right, great. Harinder, how about you? Any piece of advice from you?
I would build on what Lawrence said, and that is be true to yourself. Be very clear on what your own focus is. Absolutely, because you know what your strengths are. You know what your weaknesses are. Nobody knows that better than you. And if you're true to yourself and you really tell out very honestly in your essays that this is what I am looking for in your school, and this is what I can contribute, because it's not about just taking, it's about giving as well. You're going to be contributing to the peer-to-peer interaction that you have amongst the students. For me, like, I'm not an science, I've been a science student all my life, and here I was amongst engineers and art students and liberal arts, and there was an engineer who talks in 1.5 and 2, but for an art student it's all about a continuum. There's no 1.5 for them. It's just an abstract continuum, and they all think so differently. It's such a wonderful learning experience. So you'll be contributing something like that yourself. So what are you going to give to the school? That's equally important. So be true to yourself, show your long-term focus truthfully, and as you go through the program, you may change certain aspects of what you really want to do. That's absolutely fair. That's not something that nobody does. But it's about being really clear about what your focus is. I think amongst the students that I have seen in my batch and in my own class and the classes before mine that I spoke to, so there's always a certain amount of proportion of population that is just trying to pass through, and just enjoying the ride. That's a waste of a 1 year or 2 years, depending on which program you're doing. Really, it's a complete waste, because you don't want to do that. You want to be very clear about where you want to go, because you may get into a situation later on where you may regret, and you can't turn the clock back. It's a massive investment to turn the clock back. That's all. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful advice. Cyril, how about you?
Yeah, I love all the advice that's already been said and definitely concur with all of it. I think if I had to add one thing, I would say, it's good to come in with a plan, but also bake in a degree of flexibility. So as has already been mentioned throughout this conversation this afternoon, is, doing a career switch is a very scary, daunting thing. You've been in a certain area for quite some time, you're comfortable, you probably have done very well, and now you're going in a whole different direction. And there's just a whole lot of uncertainty and risk that kind of go with it. And I think it's really important as you kind of start going through the application process, even as you're articulating in your essay why you want to go to a school, what you're hoping to get out of it. That's a great way to kind of frame in kind of an initial sense what you want to do. What does that pivot really look like? And for me, like personally, that was a great way to kind of start thinking through it, but don't use it necessarily as like the only guide per se. So it's a great way to get you started. But as you go through the experience, you're going to learn things that will validate it in some ways and then change it in other ways. So for example, as I was going through this real estate pivot, I kind of learned which parts of real estate I wanted to get involved with. And there is one on kind of more the investing side that I thought I might enjoy, and ended up kind of going in a slightly different direction just from conversations I had with people to getting involved with some of the real estate extracurriculars that I got involved with this past year. So the more that, you really use it, I guess, in short, as a validation process. Refine your model, be flexible as you go through it, and you'll really be able to get a lot from it if you're able to do so.
Oh, wow. That's a wonderful advice. I'll pick up some audience question now. There's a question very specifically asked to Andrea. Is the transition from banking and finance operations to product management possible at Schulich? Andrea, do you have an idea on this particular transition?
Well, yeah, I mean, not specifically about from finance to product management, but I've heard a lot of people. I have friends who come from the arts and media industry who are looking to go more into the business world or only switch to a different thing. And I definitely think that this is 100% possible. Just be aware that everything takes a lot of effort, and you have to do your part in terms of maybe taking the right courses that the university will offer to you to learn these things. For Schulich, you have a lot of opportunities to learn about product management. So if that's what you want to go through, that definitely can happen. And I think it is possible.
All right. Lovely to know. So thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable advice. It has been really enlightening for me, particularly. And I would like to tell audience to please like and subscribe to our channel. That helps the YouTube algorithm to push this particular session to a lot more people. And also, please continue following MBA Spotlight, because this continues for this week. Tomorrow we have a session at 7 a.m. BST for more discussions with more schools like Darton, McCombs, and Ken and Flagger, and a Zoom session with Darton at 10 a.m. PST. So thank you so much for joining in, and all the best for your careers. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you so much.